Hi, Phanessa here. In this video I am going to demonstrate how to crochet the treble crochet stitch. So this is part of my beginners series on learning how to crochet. This is one of the basic stitches that's not used quite as often as the others. Okay, so the treble is just taller than the double. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so chain any number of stitches that you'd like. So I have 20 chain stitches. So I'm going to add 4 more stitches just for the turning chain. And the turning chain is going to be my very first treble. So this is going to be a treble stitch. So I'm going to work into the 5th chain. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Place your thumb right after that stitch so you know where you're working into. So you're going to yarn over twice. Insert your hook into that 5th stitch. Yarn over, pull up a loop. So you have 4 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. So that's our second treble because this one counts as a treble as well. So now we're going to work another treble into the next stitch. So yarn over twice, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. So we have 4 loops. We're going to yarn over and pull through 2. We're going to do that 3 times. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. Okay, so let me work one more treble. Just remember, yarn over twice into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then you're going to yarn over and pull through 2 3 times. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so I'm going to work all the way across and then we'll start the next row. I'm on my last treble. Okay, so as you can see, the stitches are taller than the double crochet stitches. So to start the next row, you're going to chain 4 and turn 1, 2, 3, 4. And the chain 4 is going to count as your first treble, which means we're going to skip this stitch here So this stitch we're going to skip because this one here is our treble crochet. So we're going to work the next one in this stitch here. Yarn over twice. We're going to skip this first one into the second stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and finally yarn over, pull through 2. Okay. It's a lot easier to see your stitches after the foundation. So I'm going to finish up this row, and I wanted to show you another way to start your treble crochets in the beginning instead of a chain 4. I'm not a huge fan of chaining in the beginning of the row or even the round. It tends to leave a gap because the chain stitches are thinner than a regular stitch. So I just worked my second to last stitch. You want to be careful when you get to the turning chain. So this was our turning chain from the beginning of the previous row, and when you get to this one, it actually looks like you're done. So you want to be careful and count your stitches and make sure that you work all of your stitches. Otherwise, if you miss this one, it's just going to start going in that direction, and then you'll end up with a triangle. So I'm going to work my last treble into the top of the turning chain. So when the pattern says to work into the turning chain, it's usually the top of that turning chain. So 1, 2, 3, 4 right there. And if you find it difficult to work right into the chain, depending on your pattern, you can work right into the space. Okay, so right there I worked right into the turning chain, but if you have trouble, I think you can just go right through the space. And it really depends on the pattern you're working on. Okay. So in order to figure out how many stitches you have, you want to count your stitches. So I know that this one lines up with this one, and then this one lines up with that one. And looking at where this one is placed, it's a little bit to the left of this one. So when I ended up here, before I worked this one, I know that this one is the stitch that belongs to this one or lines up with this one. So that's one way to tell if you've worked enough stitches, or you can count the number of treble stitches and make sure you have the same up here. Okay, so for the next row, I am going to show you a different way to start off. So once you turn, so you want to pull a tall loop, and this is going to be the same length as your treble crochet stitches here. Place your finger on top of the loop so that it doesn't slip off. You want to then come forward around that same loop, and then again one more time. And then you want to insert your hook into that very first stitch, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Notice that I've been holding on to the loop so that it doesn't slip off. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. So that's a different way of starting your very first stitch. So when you chain 3, you can see that it's not as thick as this, so it's It's thinner, which tends to leave gaps on your edge here. Okay, so after you do that, you just continue as normal, skipping that one since you worked that stitch there. And then you're just going to work treble crochet stitches. Remember that trebles start with 2 yarn overs, and you want to yarn over and pull through 2 3 times. So when you're ready to work into that very first stitch from the last row, this is the chainless treble that I did. You're just going to work right through the top 2 loops. Okay, so it makes it much easier to work into rather than working into the turning chain. And it's harder to miss too. Okay, so another way to start is to chain 3 and then you work your treble into the same stitch. So we've been skipping this first one because we have our treble here. But in this case, these 3 stitches or these 3 chains are not considered a stitch. So I'm going to work right into that same stitch. So this will eliminate the gap. However, it's going to be slightly thick on the side. So it depends on the project you're working on, what works and what doesn't. Those are different options you have to start off. I know that I avoid chaining up if I can. Okay, so right here. So this one would not be considered a stitch, and then this will be your first treble. And then when you come back, this is the top of your stitch that you want to work your last one. Again, I recommend just counting your stitches if you're not sure. It's better to count than to rip your project apart after so many rows and finding out that you're missing a stitch or you have too many stitches. Okay, so I've worked another row on top of the one I just worked. I wanted to show you what this side looks like. So this is the chain 3 that does not count as a stitch, and this is the last stitch or the first stitch on this row. So what you want to do is work your last stitch into the top of this stitch here because this doesn't count as a stitch. So as you can see, there are many different ways to work to start your swatch or your project. You just need to know how it's worked and what you're going to be doing on top of it. Okay, so you can see this. So this isn't blocked, but right here, this is where I started my row with a chain 4 and then that direction. So you can see there's a gap here if you're just working the chain 4. So here and here I worked the chainless treble and it looks so much nicer and it looks like just like the treble crochet stitches. Now over here and here I worked the chain 3 up. That doesn't count as a stitch, and that one kind of pushes those pretend stitches to the side, so it leaves a little bump there. So my favorite would be to work the chainless treble crochet stitch. So this is my treble crochet swatch. Alright, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Don't forget to check out the other videos in this beginner's series. and I'll see you next time.